This is an anti-Semitic act. This was not directional towards people who are working for the Israeli government. Now, listen, this is not a defense of the act that took place. And I'm actually going to talk about this quite extensively in a moment. Having said that, however, I am stupid enough to dive into that part of the discourse and say, yes, this was not an anti-Semitic incident. But the reason why... Okay, all right. Hold on. All right, so we are gonna, before we get to the crypto gala, all this stuff, there are additional updates into the investigation into the killing of the 2 Israeli embassy staffers. I'm obviously gonna talk about this a little bit more today. I covered it extensively yesterday, but this is a perfect situation for those who are pro-Israel, to turn around and reorient the news cycle to a victimhood narrative of anti-Semitism, and this will, of course, drive the discourse away from the subject of the Israeli occupying force shooting at Western diplomats, for example, or which happened a day prior to the shooting of the 2 Israeli diplomats, right? Or drive discourse away from the cleansing and the mass starvation that is taking place of the entire Palestinian population of the Gaza Strip. Okay. Matt does his tweet on this. Of course, Matt does, and other people, ironically enough, are going to take this position. You know who didn't take this position, though? I will say this. Out of all of the people that rushed to talk about how this was an anti-Semitic incident, okay, this was an anti-Semitic act of terrorism, okay? An anti-Semitic act of terrorism, and it wasn't like directional towards whoever this person perceived as, you know who actually did not say this was an anti-Semitic incident? Wow, I am not seeing the name in the chat at all. AOC did. AOC said it was anti-Semitism. Zoran said it was anti-Semitism. You know who actually didn't say that it was an act of anti-Semitism? Bernie fucking Sanders. Surprisingly, one of the only people in American politics that actually looked at the situation and refused to entertain the notion of anti-Semitism being the primary factor here was Bernie Sanders. He said, I'm appalled by the killing of the 2 Israeli embassy employees in Washington last night and grateful for the quick response from law enforcement. We must all absolutely condemn this heinous act. Violence must have no place in politics. To be fair, he has a bit of an advantage compared to the other 2. Yes, Megaphonics, by the way, for those of you who don't know, who is Jewish, understands the dynamic at play here. This is what all of my anti-Zionist Jewish friends have been warning me about as well, where it's like the knives are out right now. Be careful what you say. The reality of the matter is, if you are, especially if you're Muslim, for example, especially if you're a anti-Zionist who is Muslim, you have to play this song and dance, and you have to go along with the whims of whatever the mainstream discourse is, and you have to say, no, this is an anti-Semitic act. This is an anti-Semitic act. This was not directional towards people who are working for the Israeli government. Now, listen, this is not a defense of the act that took place, and I'm actually going to talk about this quite extensively in a moment. Having said that, however, I am stupid enough to dive into that part of the discourse and say, yes, this was not an anti-Semitic incident. But the reason why the Zorans of the world and the Ilhan Omars and even Rashida Tlaib, like all these people are saying that it is because they don't want to get fucking destroyed. Because people will cynically weaponize this incident to further clamp down on anti-Zionist protest. Big week for anonymous Twitter accounts with 200 followers. Yes. Now, Hasan, apparently Jake Tapper retweeted that clip of you. Yeah, I know Jake hates me, and he does not forget his grudges. So, Iran and Rashida didn't say it was anti-Semitic. I thought that they did, but maybe I'm wrong. Not that it matters. So this is an act of adventurism. It's vigilante justice. Obviously, this kind of decentralized violence is no way to truly find justice. Okay. And not only that, but it also obviously creates a hurdle in front of the pro-Palestinian movement. Having said that, however, I will never give oxygen to the idiotic posturing. Yeah, Jake Tapper fucking retweeted Elia Kobe. Come on, Jake. You're supposed to be a fucking journalist, dude. Are you also that stupid? Are you so stupid that you didn't watch the fucking 37-second video? How does he know you? I called him a cunt once, and I don't think ever forgot. Also, I talk shit about him all the time. Anyway. I do not believe that this is a false flag incident, for the record. I will once again reiterate that position that is very clear in the video that Jake Tapper just retweeted, despite the fact that the description says that it's not, says the opposite. So, where was I? Oh, Matt Duss, by the way, takes this position. Matt Duss is Bernie Sanders' former foreign policy advisor, for the record. Now, yeah, this is who Jake Tapper is retweeting, by the way. I'm not a geologist or geographer, but I know there's no in Gaza. This is the person that Jake Tapper is retweeting, just so you understand where he is at in his position. But it is expected, considering that Jake Tapper is famously antagonistic to any sort of pro-Palestinian voice or any sort of Muslim, really. He is a massive Islamophobic person. Here's another tweet from the person that Jake Tapper just retweeted. Breaking, amid the famine in air quotes in Gaza, a brand new ice cream store has opened. Make it make sense. From Gazawood, the Pileywood saga. This is just Holocaust denial shit, for the record. Anyone that believes in Gazawood needs to be put in a conservatorship. I mean, it's just straightforward genocide denial. So, where was I? Why am I talking about all this? Because I want to offer a perspective that others are unfamiliar with, that actually Jeremy Scahill, who directly interviews leadership within Hamas with regular frequency for Drop Site News, shouts out the Drop Site News, actually brought a really good point that sent me down a journey of further investigation, okay? Jeremy Scahill, when talking to Chapo Trap House's wonderful hosts, Will Menaker and Felix Biederman, said something about Hamas's operational structure and its interests. Hamas understands that operations outside of the boundaries of historic Palestine, occupied Palestinian territory, will invite a lot of scrutiny to its operations and will only be considered a burden, okay? This is something that is very important. Hamas has never engaged in any acts of violence or any incidents outside of the boundaries of occupied Palestinian territory. They've never done that. And not only that, but what I found to be rather interesting was this. Now, if you recall, back in the day, Hind Hasan went and interviewed for Vice News Yahya Sinwar. Okay? That one's getting clipped out of context. Yes, Hamas has never operated outside of historic Palestine. Okay? They've never engaged in any direct action or violence, and they also urge people not to engage in lone wolf attacks at all. Now, people will say, oh, well, they encourage lone wolf attacks in the West Bank. Yes, that is occupied Palestinian territory. They did fight ISIS. Nope. They only fought ISIS inside of Gaza. Okay. So you're not wrong. They have fought. I almost said fighted, yes. They have fought against ISIS inside of the Gaza Strip. Hamas has no reason to operate outside of Gaza. They understand that international scrutiny would undermine that cause severely. Yes, but not only that, but as you guys might have known already, if you've watched my commentary on this stuff before, a lot of the people that are both on the militant wing of Hamas, the Al-Qassam brigades, and also on the civil governance side, like Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated by Israel, ironically enough, a neutral envoy, a diplomat, assassinated by Israel in Tehran, foreign soil, have time and time again actually released statements about violent acts that have taken place outside of Palestine. One of those incidents is obviously famously Yahya Sinwar talking about the Black Lives Matter protests in the aftermath of the execution of George Floyd. We've covered this before. Another thing that I found, however, that I didn't know was when there was an incredibly violent, horrifying domestic terror incident in the Tree of Life synagogue. Did you guys know that Ismail Haniyeh denounced the Pittsburgh shooting on the 28th of October, 2018? This is from Times of Israel, so it's written in a very negative way. But the original quote, I went and I found the original quote. They said, the Hamas terrorist organization on Sunday condemned the weekend massacre at the Pittsburgh synagogue, claiming that as Palestinian victims of Israeli terror, the group relates the shattered Pennsylvania Jewish community's pain. U.S. authorities said that 46-year-old... Wait, holy shit, wait, so October 7th was done with an historic Palestine and Gaza? Yes, of course. What do you mean? Israel is a part of... Israel in its entirety is still a part of historic Palestine. It's occupied territory, yes. What? What are you talking about? Anyway, listen. U.S. authorities said 46-year-old Robert Bowers killed 8 men and 3 women inside the Tree of Life synagogue on Saturday during worship services before a tactical police team shot and wounded him. Bowers faces state and federal charges. In a statement, top Hamas official Bassem Naim said the group was sorry to hear about the terror attack. As Palestinians and victims of the terror of Israeli occupation, we know the meaning of terror and its horrific outcomes, Naim said. This heinous attack, especially in a place of worship, proves that terror has no religion or nationality, he added. And then, of course, the rest of it is just like, talking about how Hamas is horrible. But not only are they in tune with American politics, not only are they in tune with what's going on in American politics, like it's actually interesting that like at times they've even released statements denouncing anti-Semitic acts of terror in the United States of America. Can you pull up the BLM one? I mean, sure. Here, Yahya Sinwar, Black Lives Matter. Wait, oh shit, the video is deleted. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Where is it? Where is it? I think, okay, this is from Instagram, but here. This is the best I could find. Sinwar, Hamas's Politburo head recently killed in battle, talked about the interconnectedness of black and Palestinian struggles against racism. Yahya Sinwar. Oh, fuck. I can't see the subtitles. It's too small. It's from the Vice interview with Hind Hasan that you just saw, but I can't fucking zoom in because it's an Instagram post. Let me see if I can find a... No. The video is not deleted. The video is not deleted. Here. Okay, this is a little bit larger. And I want to take this opportunity, he says. Okay. He says, I want to take this opportunity and remember the racist murder of George Floyd. George Floyd was killed as a result of racist ideology held by some people. The same type of racism that killed George Floyd is being used by Israel against the Palestinians in Jerusalem, the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, and in the West Bank, and by the burning of our children, and against the Gaza Strip, through siege, murder, and starvation. The entire free world must put an end to these crimes. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because, they are obviously very in tune with American politics and understand these dynamics. And it reminded me of, hold on, let me see if I can. It reminded me of it was on TikTok. I liked it, I think, so I could show it to you guys. It reminded me of the IRA during the Troubles, releasing statements about American Irish people. It works too well. Sorry, here's Bernadette Devlin in Boston in 1979. Here's what her statements look like.
If the Irish American community became too involved in our struggle against oppression, it might raise some questions as to the contradictions within their own body politic in America. There is nothing sadder to people struggling against oppression in Ireland to look towards Boston City and see our people. We know how they got here. We know the oppression they fled from Ireland in various generations to get to this city, being used to oppress the black people.
Guys, shut the fuck up. Yes, I know Radiohead is the worst here because Radiohead is a fucking Radiohead or Zionist. Shut up. Just listen to the goddamn words that are coming out of Bernadette Devlin's mouth. Oh my fucking Lord. God, some of you guys are exactly the type of fucking annoying little babies that I despise and try to yell at all the time. It's like a different version of being so drama obsessed, okay? It's not the main point. It's not the main point at all, okay? Radiohead being the backdrop of this fucking commentary is not the main point. Listen to her words instead of freaking out. It's like if you saw a can of Coke in the background being like, ooh, Coke is BDS. Like, shut the fuck up. Shut up. God damn. Gen Z activism is so laser focused on all of the wrong things.
Oppression in Ireland. To look towards Boston City and see our people. We know how they got here. We know the oppression they fled from Ireland in various generations to get to this city, being used to oppress the black people of this city. People tell me I don't understand the situation. They tell me blacks are lazy, they don't want to work, they want to lower the standard of education. They tell me all the things I was brought up to hear about myself, things Protestant people said about Catholic people in Belfast. I think that's part of it too. I mean, if they really understood what was happening in Ireland, they would get themselves sorted out and stand on the right side here, because we identify very closely in our struggle for equality and our struggle against oppression. In fact, the whole inspiration of our civil rights movement 10 years ago came from the black movement of America. And it looks to us from where we stand at home that our people are being oppressed with the active assistance of our people. We find that very sad.
Yeah. This is solidarity of all oppressed peoples all around the planet. Okay? This is something that I've seen with my conversations with Irish people that get it. Irish people living in Ireland, of course, including the north of Ireland. Not Northern Ireland, but the north of Ireland. And they understand that. They understand that these struggles are almost the same. It might take up different forms. The people holding the gun might have different interests, or rather a different look to them. Having said that, the struggle against occupation is always going to look the same. The struggle against white supremacy is always going to look the same. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there is a part of Jewish history that is often forgotten. Jewish resistance to Nazis and Nazi demonstrations and Nazism in general in the lead up to the final solution. And what I find particularly strange is in the aftermath of the shooting that took place, from the vigilante justice focused person who, by the way, once again, I do not believe vigilante justice is a solution, okay? I don't believe vigilante justice and adventurism is a real solution to ending the genocide in Gaza, okay? To ending Israel's genocide. Having said that, I find it odd that people who have been using this incident in an effort to clamp down on pro-Palestinian speech, to claim things such as free Palestine is the modern day equivalent of Heil Hitler, seemingly forget important aspects of Jewish history and Jewish resistance to Nazi Germany. I am reminded of the story of David Frankfurter. I'm going to give you two people. I'm going to talk about two people. One is David Frankfurter. I'm going to read you a Times article from, I believe, like 1939, if I'm not mistaken. It's from 1936, sorry. This is from Time February 17th, 1936. The title reads, Foreign News, Jew Kills Nazi. David Frankfurter, a nervous, hollow-eyed young Jew born in Yugoslavia, took the train from Bern last week to the Swiss winter sports resort of Davos. He did not go there to ski, and though Davos boasts a fine meteorological observatory, he was not interested in the weather. After hanging around town for 3 days, he asked his way to the home of Dr. Wilhelm Gustloff, physicist at the Davos Observatory. Bustling Frau Gustloff ushered him into the study. When the doctor rose to greet him, David Frankfurter whipped out a pistol, sent 5 bullets crashing into his body. Wilhelm Gustloff died instantly. Pushing his way out of the house, David Frankfurter walked quietly across the park and surrendered to the Swiss police. I did it because he was a Nazi agent who poisoned the atmosphere, explained assassin Frankfurter. These bullets should have hit Hitler. Oldest in point of service of all Adolf Hitler's foreign organizers were Wilhelm Gustloff, age 41. He was also among the ablest, possibly because he had more than his political beliefs to recommend him to Swiss converts. An able physicist, he went to live in Davos years ago, feeling that the altitude would help him, his weak lungs. Even before his friend Hitler became chancellor, he began organizing Nazi groups in Switzerland. For weeks, Germany has had orders to play down all forms of anti-Semitism in the view of the flood of tourists expected for the Winter Olympics. After the murder of Nazi Gustloff there was no holding the Nazi press, roared Julius Streider's Frankische Tageszeitung. The assassination of Gustloff is another in the long series of Jewish ritual murders which began with the slaughter of the Aryans by Jews thousands of years ago and is now celebrated annually in the Feast of Purim. Germany's minister to Switzerland, Baron Ernst von Weizsäcker, on vacation, hurried to Berlin for a conference, then back to Bern to make loud protests. Swiss Vice President and Foreign Minister Giuseppe Motta had already sent an official letter of regret to Berlin, and the Swiss seemed cool to impassioned demands by Reichsfuhrer Hitler's own news organ for the death sentence for the assassin. Maximum Swiss sentence for political murders is 15 years in jail. The canton for Grisons, where the crime was committed, long ago abolished the death penalty. Thinking of the Olympic Games, Germany dared take no obvious reprisals, but bitter little propaganda minister Goebbels promptly ordered that all Jewish theatrical meetings, concerts, lectures, etc. in Germany be abolished until further notice. Now, this is not the only important historical event that took place, okay? This was, after all, and David Frankfurter is hailed, understandably, as a hero in Israel, for the record. His story has been talked about in the past. A person who recognized the horrifying nature of Nazi Germany and took matters into his own hands and actually engaged in an adventurous act of violence directed towards someone in a position of prominence, for the record, a position of high status, not simply just like a low-level diplomat or low-level embassy employee, but a person in a position of prominence. He only served, I believe, 9 years of his 15-year sentence, or even shorter than that, and he was subsequently released. Okay, here's another story. One who fought back, Herschel Greenspan and the Holocaust. Now, this story is lesser known, even though it was pivotal. Herschel Greenspan, on the morning of November 7th, 1938, a 17-year-old entered the German embassy in Paris. Hidden within the three-piece suit was a gun he had purchased earlier that day. In his pocket was a postcard on which he had written an abbreviated Hebrew phrase invoking God's help and a message in German for his family. My dear parents, I could not do anything else. May God forgive me. My heart bleeds when I hear of the tragedy that befell you and 12,000 other Jews. I need to protest so that the entire world hears this, and this I will do. Forgive me. At the embassy, Greenspan asked to see an official, saying he had a document to submit that was too important to be left with a clerk. He was ushered into an office of a junior-level diplomat, 29-year-old Ernst von Roth, who asked to inspect it. Drawing his gun, Greenspan told him, "You are a filthy kraut, and in the name of 12,000 persecuted Jews, here is the document." He fired 5 shots at von Roth, who died 2 days later. Now, what's important is this was used by the Nazis as the incident that invoked the Kristallnacht. A lot of the a lot of the important aspects of Jewish resistance against Nazi Germany are oftentimes not talked about, weirdly enough. Okay? The point I'm making is not to defend the actions that took place 2 nights prior. It's not that at all, because as I've said, adventurism and decentralized violence such as that, vigilante justice, is no real justice at all. It is, in many ways, an act of final resistance that people who feel desperate will engage in. The reason why it's important to recognize this, the reason why it's important to understand this, is because you need to reframe this within the confines of the actual harm that's taking place. This is part of the reason why I advocate for real solutions. I advocate for legal solutions. This is the reason why I advocate for real justice, to put an end to the genocide in Gaza through the legal means that are available. What I fear is that when people recognize that there are no legal avenues available, they turn around and choose to take matters into their own hands. Okay? This is something that Felix was talking about as well. Felix Biederman was talking about with Jeremy Scale, where he said the social contract that everyone is supposed to abide by recognizes that there is supposed to be a legal means of restitution, a way to take it up to the court structure and have the existing organs of justice, that are supposed to bring about some kind of real restitution, some kind of real to a problem such as unlimited genocide that is unfolding in front of our eyes. This is what happens when the social contract is ripped apart, or when people recognize their powerlessness. This also plays along with what Taylor Lorenz was talking about yesterday in the video that we watched about the "someone has to do it" meme that has become incredibly popular at this point against the Trump administration and against Elon Musk. This is once again not a defense of vigilante justice at all, but a simple contextualization of how vigilante justice occurs, or vigilante violence occurs, if you want to call it that. If your goal is to bring about peace, as is my goal, you have to understand how violent incidents such as this one occur and correctly identify the reasons and recognize whether or not there is a grievance there that broadly would be seen as an important grievance to address. The comparison here is when here, I'll give you an example of of a person who thinks they're engaging in vigilante justice or vigilante revenge, okay, that does not have a righteous cause. This is identical to what I talked about with Luigi Mangione as well, yes. However, there are significant differences between this act and Luigi Mangione. I've described it yesterday, but I will relitigate that in a second. Now, when you have white supremacist, white nationalist shooters, or anti-Semitic shooters like the Tree of Life synagogue shooter, the media parses through their manifestos and reveals what their motives are in this process. The reason why they do this is to see what the grievance is. Not all grievances are correct. Some of them are completely fucking imagined. The Tree of Life synagogue shooter was hopped up on great replacement Nazi theories, the false notion, the anti-Semitic conspiracy that Jews are importing third world populations into the United States of America and into the Western world in an effort to deliberately undermine Western superiority. Okay? This argument is ridiculous. In this circumstance, the initial act of political violence, as Bernie Sanders is correctly called, an act of political violence, which has no place in American society. When Bernie Sanders says that, he's right. Okay? This act of political violence was not born out of anti-Semitism. And I think considering this as an anti-Semitic incident, or trying to massage the shooter's motives into fitting in the confines of anti-Semitism, is once again creating this Israel and Judaism.
Latest on the shooting of 2 Israeli embassy staffers, a young couple gunned down in Washington. The suspect has now been charged with first-degree murder. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas is tracking the latest on the investigation. Pierre, good morning.
Wait, good morning. As we learn more about the suspect, a stunned city continues to grieve the lives of that beautiful couple who were executed in what appears to be a cold-blooded political assassination.
Today, Elias Rodriguez is being described by authorities as a terrorist fueled by hate and anti-Semitism, charged with firearms violations and murdering foreign officials.
Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated, especially in the nation's capital. Now, we're going to continue to investigate this as a hate crime and a crime of terrorism.
And we're learning disturbing new details that the suspect had flown into the Washington area on Monday and checked a 9mm handgun in with his luggage. And the FBI says he bought a ticket to the event being held at the D.C. Capitol Jewish Museum, his alleged target location. It's there authorities say that he murdered in cold blood 30-year-old Yoran Lashinsky and his girlfriend, 26-year-old Sarah Milgram, targeting them as they left a celebration of Jewish heritage. He allegedly shot the 2 members.
Like, even that, this part of it is incorrect. There's plenty of parts of this coverage that is just incorrect, simply. Okay? Like, the event is very clearly defined as a diplomats gathering, okay? Thrown by the American Jewish Committee. Now, the reason why I stress this is because it's called the AJC Access Young Diplomats Reception. Because what further investigation has found is that this was an event where young diplomats were supposed to be gathering. And while this is haphazardly done, while this was haphazardly done by the shooter, his motive was not to go to a place of Jewish worship and find Jews to kill, but instead try to identify someone who is associated with the state of Israel. This is not a justification of his actions. I am not saying he did the right thing. I'm not saying that I identify with his motives. But it's important to understand his motive. It's important to describe and analyze his motive. Do you understand? And I think that there is a why this is being presented as an anti-Semitic violent act. Because an anti-Semitic violent act and a hate crime is understood by the broader population, okay? But the fears, I think, that people in positions of power, the fears that they have, understandable fears that they have, is that if they were to present this as a suspect motivated by taking matters into his own hands, because of the sheer inability of the democratic organs of justice taking place to stop the bloodshed that every American has seen, they fear that there would be more copycats. They fear that there would be more, they fear that it would be harder to argue against because of the systematic problems that I've already described to you about America's attitude towards violence. We are in a dangerous place right now in terms of American attitudes towards violence, American proclivity towards violence. We no longer have an intolerance to violence in the United States of America. We are no longer as intolerant as we once might have been to instances of domestic terror even. This is a terrifying prospect. This is a terrifying prospect if you care. Wait, what the fuck? Oh, Ken Clippus 9, FBI visits me over the manifesto. I guess the FBI came and visited him. We've never had an intolerance to violence. It's just now come home to us as well. Exactly.
Members of the Israeli embassy in the back and continued to fire at them after they fell to the ground. At least 21 shell casings discovered at the scene. A love story cut short. Lashinsky was planning to propose to Milgram next week. Friends and family describing the couple as lovely people who yearn for peace.
Americans were intolerant to violence. That doesn't sound right. I think there was a larger percentage of Americans that were intolerant of violence in terms of like political violence. Do you understand? And now that number has diminished. Americans have always loved violence. But as far as like political violence goes, Americans like order. Political violence is disorder. And we are dangerously becoming numb to political violence in general. And this is part of the reason why, I think the media plays a role in saying like, no, this is an anti-Semitic hate crime.
Sarah was so empathetic and talking about how the people in Israel are suffering, the Palestinians in Israel are suffering. She was an incredible person, and she will be really missed.
Yaron was the kind of guy that would have conversations with anybody about anything. I will forever think of him as a diplomat on par and a peacemaker at heart.
On Thursday, the FBI was at the suspect's Chicago home, continuing its international investigation, looking for it.
With the city still reeling, the police chief says she has increased security at schools and Jewish community centers. You're also seeing that kind of security across the nation as a result of this truly heartbreaking and cruel story. Michael?
That it is, Pierre. Heartbreaking and cruel, as you said. Thank you for that.
The police.
Pierre should share Yoron's tweets. Yeah, that's not going to happen, obviously. And it doesn't matter because the only reason why I've shown the background and described certain things about him is not because like the shooter knew all of that information. I make that very clear in my coverage yesterday. The shooter didn't know any of that. The shooter just assumed that these people would be in some way, shape, or form connected to the Israeli embassy. Okay? He didn't make that calculation. As far as we know, we don't know. We don't know. We'll find out. There will be an investigation. He's not dead. Okay? But the reason why I bring that up is not to offer post hoc justifications in the way that like other people do when like police shootings happen or whatever. The reason why I bring that up is because the media also, once again, recognizing how unpopular Israel is in the broader American population, have to present these guys as peaceful doves that actually were working on a solution for Palestinians. And now the FBI is going after Ken Klippenstein. For the second time in a year, the FBI came to my home yesterday after I published a so-called manifesto of the man charged with killing 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington. The visit didn't surprise me, but its tone did. It was aggressive and threatening. "You're not in trouble," the 2 special agents kept saying, good cop style, to get me to answer the questions they would later ask. Where had I gotten the manifesto? Had I the attack? Did I receive instructions about how to disseminate the statement? Not a single mainstream media outlet has published the text because, as they claim, the FBI hasn't confirmed its authenticity. But the real reason is simple. The media just doesn't want to publish it. And the FBI doesn't want the media to think it can. "You're not in trouble," they said a few more times. "I know," I replied, wondering what else I could say to them to get them to go away. Shutting the door in their faces did not seem wise. Maybe I could demonstrate that I know enough about the FBI that their elicitation techniques wouldn't work, I thought. "You guys are from the satellite office in Middleton?" I asked them, alluding to one of their many but little-known resident agencies distinct from their field offices, Wisconsin's being in Milwaukee. "Have you been there?" the man asked, looking surprised. "No, that's where the last visit came from," I explained, smiling. "The Bureau paid me a visit last year about my publication of the J.D. Vance dossier." This, too, seemed to throw them off. "They were sent by Washington," they said, perhaps trying to distance themselves from the intrusion. Then came the big ask. "We want to know about the timeline, how you knew about the manifesto before anyone else, and if you were in touch with the shooter beforehand." I once again referred them to my attorney, and finally they left. But that wasn't the last I'd hear of them. They left my lawyer, Beth Burden, a career public defender who goes toe-to-toe with cops every day for her job, support her excellent work here, a voicemail, which I've enclosed below.
Hi, Beth. My name is Ellen Thurmer. I'm a special agent with the FBI Milwaukee Division out of the Madison RA. I'm calling in regards to your client, Ken Klippenstein. I was just over at Mr. Klippenstein's residence earlier today, following up on some questions I had regarding the manifesto that he published on his blog yesterday. Mr. Klippenstein recommended that we give you a call or email in order to consult with you prior to an interview or in conjunction with you. He was not comfortable speaking to us without your guidance. Again, my name is Ellen Thurmer. I'm with FBI Milwaukee, the Madison RA. I can be reached here at my cell phone. I'll also try to follow up with you via email.
Is not a scam, chatters. What the fuck are you talking about? As Beth explained to me, Special Agent Ellen P. Thurmer, one of the two that visited me, told her that they wanted to know why I'd published a manifesto, among other questions. Beth called them back, and after some back and forth, the special agent offered to send the questions in an email, trying to convince me to submit to an interview as a part of their investigation. The purpose of this interview is to glean as much information regarding the manifesto, how it came into Mr. Klippenstein's possession as possible. The email said, "We would appreciate it if this list of questions was kept between you and your client," the email read. These are those 11 questions from the email I've reproduced below. When did he first encounter the manifesto? How did he first encounter the manifesto? Did he receive any instruction from the source of the manifesto about how to disseminate it? Does the system or platform from which he received the manifesto capture metadata concerning the transfer of the manifesto? Did he make any edits or changes to the manifesto? Was this his first and only interaction with whomever submitted the manifesto? You want to know something interesting? There was another person who was very quick, just like Ken Klippenstein, who also published or reposted the manifesto. His name is Eric Toller. He is a part of the Visual Investigations Unit at the fucking New York Times. Because Eric Toller, much like Ken Klippenstein, is a real fucking journalist. The dude published his manifesto on his fucking, Twitter account. What are we talking about? Has anyone else submitted any other documentation regarding this incident? Did his receipt of the manifesto predate the attack? Where else, if anywhere, did he disseminate the manifesto? Does he have any knowledge of where else the manifesto was published or saved? Why does he think he was the one who received the manifesto? That last one is fucking... the implication is that last one is a gotcha, for the record. Because that last one is a hidden premise that he is the one who actually received the manifesto from the shooter. Other than the questions implying the FBI is entertaining an outlandish theory that I conspire with the shooter, the others seem pretty straightforward and routine. But there's a Trump administration dimension to all of this. The administration has many times publicly warned about shadowy, unseen forces that it believes are bankrolling everything from Tesla vandalism to the college protests. That tone from the top, labeling seemingly everything terrorism, tells personnel that the gloves are off and more aggressive work in the field is now permissible. Get ready to hear that I'm impeding the investigation, giving people a roadmap to the sources and methods that are used to catch terrorists, or whatever reason the National Security State Soundboard offers up for why the public isn't allowed to know things. Let's see if this gets me another visit. That was Ken Klippenstein. Subscribe to his Substack to continue supporting good journalism. What is happening? Are you guys duking it out? What manifesto are they referring to? It's the one that the shooter released that was available, I believe, on his Twitter account and his Blue Sky account. Ken Klippenstein released the manifesto on his Substack yesterday. I covered it yesterday when he released the manifesto to understand the motives of the suspect. Here is the Israel Embassy Shooter Manifesto, which we covered yesterday. So... he did not paywall it, no. Especially at a time when the motives of these actions are very important, and the media is offering a separate presentation of the events that unfolded. I'm not shying away from discussing the true motives of this suspect, even if those true motives of the suspect are damaging to what I seek to do. Because it would be very easy to simply just go along with this and be like, well, anti-Semitism has no place, which is true, it doesn't, right? And this person was anti-Semitic. But I think it's important to make up your own mind and to investigate further and find the truth, especially at a time when narrative overcomes the truth quite frequently. The man shot is a Christian Zionist, is not anti-Semitic. Yeah, look, that part of it is not all that important. The only reason why I've brought that up is because a lot of news media was immediately reporting on it as though he was Jewish when he is not, okay? He was a practicing Christian, for the record. One of the two people that he shot and killed was a practicing Christian that had gone to Jerusalem, that actually volunteered to join the Israeli occupying force, that what do you call it, was he was a German Christian. His mother was a practicing his mother is a practicing evangelical Christian. His father was Jewish, but he himself was a German Christian. He revealed this on numerous instances, talked about it. He talked about it numerous times, okay? Once again, this is not information that the shooter, as far as we know, was privy to. Having said that, okay? Wait, hold on. I gotta do something. 1 second. Yes, I used to know Sarah. She was Jewish. Yes, Sarah is Jewish. Hold on 1 second. I just gotta do this.
As you go forward, with what you have seen, can you give us any sense, because you said you looked the shooter in the eyes, can you give us any sense of what you saw in him as he was sort of getting help and people were tending to him as if he too was a victim of seeing this?
Yeah, well, to be clear, I heard about that part because we were in a secure room when he initially walked in. I just saw him screaming and then being handcuffed. But what I saw in his eyes, I went to Columbia for grad school, and I saw the same thing in his eyes as I saw in the eyes of all the protesters at Columbia. Nothing different between him and them.
But they did not create this horrific shooting. They did not, they didn't shoot.
They gave permission. They gave the permission. And they have called for this. They have called for Intifada revolution, which is the same thing he yelled last night.
Do you worry that there will be a conflation, though, of the two, those people who are speaking their mind, who really care about?
Yeah, this was this question, okay, which is surprisingly decent, okay? This question is about how in the future the government could potentially fucking prosecute even people saying free Palestine. Because it's not a secret, it's not hidden that the administration is actively targeting pro-Palestinian demonstrators and claiming that they are terrorists or anti-Semitic in an effort to prosecute them in direct violation of the First Amendment protections that are offered to every single citizen and non-citizen on U.S. soil.
About what is happening in Gaza, and those people who are like this person who did this horrific shooting, who intend to do harm.
A conflation. They are calling for Intifada at Columbia.
He's literally saying this is the same thing. What this shooter did is what these people are demanding, what Free Palestine people are demanding. That is what he's saying.
Columbia University, they call for Intifada constantly. They're not quietly, they're loud. They're loud. You can hear it. They make recordings of themselves. So what's the difference?
Are you afraid?
Yes.
What will
We're
you do
all
about
afraid.
that?
Everyone should be afraid.
What are you doing to try to make yourself feel safer?
Well, you just go on and live your life. I'm a New Yorker. I remember 9/11. You can't let them make you be afraid. You have to go on. You have to live your life, and hopefully your government does things to protect you. Last night, our government failed us.
Jonathan Epstein, I know that they are going forward with this.
No, I don't think, for the record, I don't think that this is, once again, I'm going to repeat this, even though the dumbest fucking morons that are trying to do Hasbara and trying to do pro-Israel commentary are claiming the opposite. I do not believe that this was a false flag incident. Okay? I don't. I understand why people do, but I think it's unproductive to make speculations such as this. The shooter is not, the shooter is in custody. He is not dead. Okay? The shooter volunteered himself to the authorities. Not everything is a major conspiracy. Can you explain what a false flag is? Yes, a false flag is the idea that interested parties at this environment that actually set up this assassination, as though Israel played a role in the killing of these two diplomats, these two staffers in the Israeli embassy, in an effort to whip up anger and resentment towards the Free Palestine movement. This is what people are saying, okay? That it's like staged or it's fake. I don't think it is staged or fake. In many false flags, the perp is groomed to carrying out the attack, though. I don't think this perpetrator, I mean, there will be further investigation in this. If something smells strange, then maybe I'll change my analysis. But judging by all the readily available information, I do not believe that this was a incident where the perpetrator was like manipulated or anything like that. False flag is a deceptive activity carried out during peacetime by individuals or non-governmental organizations. I think Sean the Black said it well yesterday. America and Israel don't need pretense for escalation against Palestine anymore. This isn't Iraq. America and Israel are so belligerent, they've dropped the need for false flags. I don't even disagree. Yeah, I think that's a good take. Yeah, a famous false flag incident was a proposed false flag operation called Operation Northwoods, where they were looking for just cause to invade Cuba. And what the CIA designed, okay, was within the Department of Defense in the United States government in 1962. The proposal called for CIA operatives to both stage and commit acts of terrorism against American military and civilian targets and blame them on the Cuban government. That is a famous example of a proposed false flag incident that never took place. Another false flag incident is the Gulf of Tonkin incident. This was used as an opportunity to offer just cause to the United States of America in invading and occupying Vietnam. The Gulf of Tonkin incident was an international confrontation that led to the United States engaging more directly in the Vietnam War. It consisted of a confrontation when the United Forces were carrying out covert amphibious operations close to North Vietnamese territorial waters, which triggered a response from the North Vietnamese forces. The United States government falsely claimed that a second incident occurred on the 4th of August between the North Vietnamese and United States ships in the waters of the Gulf of Tonkin. Originally, a U.S. military claim blamed North Vietnam for the confrontation and the ostensible, but in fact imaginary incident on August 4th. Later investigation revealed that the second attack never happened. The National Security Agency, an agency of the U.S. Department of Defense, had to create the impression that an attack had been carried out, claiming that the North Vietnamese forces had actually opened fire. This is what people think happened. This is what people think took place during the shooting incident yesterday or 2 days ago. I do not believe that it is a false flag. The reason as to why people think it's a false flag is because of the timing of it, which is one day after the Israeli occupying force opened fire on diplomats in the West Bank that were on a invited trip to the West Bank, and also because Israel's, like, people's perception of Israel is more negative than it's ever been throughout the 77 years of Israeli occupation in the United States of America. This would relitigate. This would, one, perfectly create an environment where the government would have to actively suppress pro-Palestinian speech by tying all pro-Palestinian emancipatory movements and even the PSL, which the shooter briefly was affiliated with and stopped being affiliated with since 2017, and other legal entities that are allowed to operate under the First Amendment to no longer be able to operate legally. This ties back to the Project Esther ambitions that were created by the Heritage Foundation alongside Project 2025. Project Esther is the anti-Semitism task force side of Project 2025. It is a written out, deliberate attempt of undermining First Amendment protections in this country by tackling pro-Palestinian protesters by claiming that every single person that is aware of the atrocities that Israel commits, or aware of the 77-year occupational history of Israel as a violent settler colonial state, is actually a part of the Hamas Support Network, HSN for short. Project Esther is open. Like, that's not what I'm saying is not speculation. This is a real document produced by the Heritage Foundation And as we know, the Heritage Foundation has produced many documents, this right-wing think tank, that the Trump administration follows to a T. Okay? Why people suspect it is a false flag. I do not believe it's a false flag, but I do believe that both the Israeli government, demonstrably, and also all of the networks that want to promote Israel, or at least shift the attention away from Israel's atrocities in the Gaza Strip, are using this as an opportunity to clamp down on pro-Palestinian speech, myself included. There is a reason why there are individuals that directly engage in Hasbara operations, whether it be the ADL or whether it be the likes of dumbfucks like E.L. Jacoby, immediately rushed to claim things that I wasn't doing as though I was doing them, including, but not limited to, the notion that I considered this to be a false flag operation. You can watch the 37-second video and recognize that I'm actually not saying it's a false flag operation. I'm saying the exact opposite. And yet, this dumb fuck has now been retweeted by the likes of Jake Tapper. We do live in the post-truth era.